Hello, everyone. Thanks for taking time to join us for another series of our education event that we've been hosting. We've really enjoyed it, and we're really excited about today's session with Kim, our business analyst. So quickly, my name is Jared Hackbart. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing at Brilliance. I've been here for about 4.5 years, and I've really enjoyed working at Brilliance. I've really enjoyed being a part of this education series. But we'll keep my intro brief because both Lori and Kim are far more fascinating than me. So Lori.
Sure. I'm also really excited to be here today. A little bit about myself and Brilliance. So I started Brilliance a little more than 20 years ago. I went to Purdue in computer electrical engineering and ended up through an internship at NASA Johnson Space Center, where I eventually worked as a flight controller for the space shuttle program. So a really exciting experience. I ended up meeting my husband there. He also went to Purdue in engineering, ended up through the same internship program at NASA as a flight controller. And then he eventually, after college, went to work at Rockwell Automation, which is what eventually brought us to Milwaukee when he had a promotion to Rockwell's headquarters, where he managed their largest data warehouse. And I was trying to figure out what could be as cool as space. So it was in 1998. And I decided to start a web development company. The web was kind of in its infancy, and based on my technical background and my husband's experiences at Rockwell, we developed a niche in the B2B e-commerce space. My husband left his job 9 years ago, and now he leads our development team. And I'm really excited about our session here today with Kim. Kim's been an amazing addition to our team, and really helps customers to realize the how to get the most value out of their digital commerce solutions. And Kim, I'd love to have you introduce yourself.
Yeah, well, thank you for the very kind intro. So I have been with Brilliance as a business analyst now for just over a year. I just had my 1-year anniversary the other week, which is very exciting. Time really flies. My background, well, I have not worked for NASA. I have worked for, kind of jumped around a variety of different industries because I really love to learn. So I was in the auto industry for a little while, and then I was in insurance for a couple of years, and now here I am in e-commerce and kind of really digging into that, which has been a very exciting opportunity.
Can you tell us what a business analyst is?
Yeah, definitely. And I think to start talking about that, it's important to talk about a business analyst role versus some other roles, like a product manager, for example, because these are roles where there's definitely a lot of overlap and similar skill sets, but there are key differences. So I'll kind of tell you my take on those differences to help clarify everything. So the way I see a product manager is their ultimate goal is the product itself. It's important for them to understand why people use the product, but generally not so much how people use that product. Whereas a business analyst like myself, I really need to fully understand inside and out how my clients are using that product or that website on a day-to-day basis. So I'm also responsible for getting business and product requirements and helping our dev team to fully build out all of the functional and technical specifications to ensure that the client's needs are fully met. The next step of that is testing and making sure that once things are built, that they meet the requirements that I had written up. And testing is a whole, we could have a whole conversation just on testing, but later in today's conversations, I can get more into like the different types of testing that we do. But yeah, that's a very big part of it as well.
Let's jump into why you think or what you think makes a good business analyst.
So I think a good business analyst is someone who truly cares about their customers and has the ability to really put themselves in their customers' shoes. I had come across an image online. There it is, Lori pulled it up. So it says, "You are not your user, so stop thinking like you." This is true when it comes to thinking about design and when it comes to testing. And I think it's just really important. It's really hard to get out of your own head, right? So this image stuck with me because it's just a post-it note right there on your computer, like, hey, stop thinking like you. You gotta really put yourself in your customer's shoes. So you need to be able to do that. The next thing is there's this quote, it's see the forest through the trees. So as I am working on customer requirements, it's very important that I fully understand all of the details. But while I'm doing that, I need to make sure that I also have really good perspective on where those details are going to fit into the project as a whole. Because it's very easy to go down a rabbit hole and kind of work and spend a ton of hours on something minor, and then maybe it doesn't fit into the vision as a whole at the end and you have to kind of rework it. So our goal there is to kind of do as little rework as possible. I had mentioned testing before. We do so many different kinds of testing. I'm going to list a couple of them, and I know that I'll probably forget one, but we do a ton of functionality testing. We do integration testing. We do database testing. We do a lot of unit testing, regression testing. So those are all really, really important steps. Some of the most important. And also something that we've talked about is that testing process should really start happening. And when I say testing, I mean really the QA process as a whole. And that should really start happening from day one in these discovery sessions. We need to start coming up with test plans and really fully understanding the requirements and what it is going to take to make sure that those requirements are met at the end of the project. Your initial question is what makes a good business analyst? At the end of the day, my end goal is the pursuit of customer joy. If my customers are happy, then I'm happy. And my end goal is really to take their needs and align those with a website that works for them and a website that they love to use and that their clients love to use.
I love
Definitely.
that. Yeah. We get very wrapped up in the idea, which it's still important, but hitting our guarantee and focusing on budget and creating a website that's going to generate revenue. And of course, those facets of the project are key and important. But at the end of the day, creating a website that they love is, I just love that line when we connected. And I think that's truly something that speaks to our organization and the work that you do.
Definitely.
Yeah, thank you.
Kim, I'm curious, how does the business analyst role at Brilliance differ from other positions you've worked in the past?
Yeah, that's a good question. My last couple roles were really focused heavily on data integration. So data analysis and integrations, and I really had my head in spreadsheet a lot and in SQL and kind of very back end. And I had kind of realized when I wanted a bit of a change, what I had been missing was more of the customer interaction and those customer relationships. So I knew I wanted something along the lines of like a customer success manager or a business analyst where I would be working very closely with those customers to determine what they need and talk to them and get their story and ask a lot of questions. So it was sort of that like people connection that I kind of missed.
Yeah.
But with this business analyst role, what's really great is I now get that people connection, but I also get the back end stuff where then I can work with our developers and I can relay their needs and build out all of those requirements.
On a related note, so we talk about that people interaction and the pursuit of customer joy. Digital commerce projects can be really challenging to execute well on to get to a point where customers are feeling great about the end result. And so I guess, what are your tips for how to set up a project so it's successful?
So everybody has different working styles. I really like structure. I think it's the type A in me. I like to have agendas and calendars and structures and really stick to them. And we have a wonderful project manager here, Brendan, who's also amazing at that. So I like to have recurring meetings to touch base with our customers because let's be real, this isn't a perfect world. And Lori and Jared, you guys know very well, we are building these massive websites. They're very intensive, they're very detailed, they're very intricate. There's 1,000 moving pieces. There's a million moving pieces. So things are going to come up. And I think it's really important to have recurring meetings where let's just get something on the calendar for once a week or twice a week or maybe 3 times a week with the customer, just to touch base and see what's going on and where are we and what are the next steps. Make sure that everybody's on the same page. Along with that is prioritizing their issues when things do come up. COVID has, kind of put a wrench in everything and made everything we have to kind of reevaluate. And so I've been trying to do more phone calls and less emails so that you kind of keep that personal touch. Even what we're doing right now, these webinars, I don't know if you guys had been planning on doing these prior to COVID or if this was sort of a thing to like connect with people during this time. Either way, I think it's an awesome idea just to really touch base with people and get to connect. Yeah, so just having those recurring meetings, now that we can't get together in person so much, I think this type of thing, the webinar meetings are very crucial too.
So you mentioned COVID, and it certainly has changed our approach on handling relationships with clients. And you mentioned phone calls. Is there anything else from a relationship building perspective, even if it's something we haven't done, that you think would be something to consider, or things that we should do, or maybe that we're doing to continue to foster those relationships?
I think that it's really important to ask a lot of questions. How are you doing? How is your company doing? How is your industry doing, right? Because it's our job to become as much of an expert as possible in the website we're building. And maybe that has to do with like the science industry or something. And we're probably not going to be able to be a full expert the way that they are, but we want to know as much as possible about what they're doing so that we can help meet their needs. And I think just asking those questions and like reaching out and being proactive about that is awesome. And hopefully eventually we'll get to a point where we can have more in-person meetings too, to really connect, even if it's like a backyard thing at someone's house, and like, let's just try to get together and meet, and just keep our social distance. I'm hoping eventually we can do that kind of thing too.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It kind of builds up one of our values at Brilliance is building trust through healthy conflict. And a lot of what you're talking about, Kim, is really the importance of good relationships with people as a part of a successful project. And I think just points to the fact that like we put together a really strong plan around how to execute on a project. But the reality is, I don't remember what's the quote, like no plan survives the first engagement with the enemy. I don't know. I think I have that wrong, but something like that. Like there's like every plan, you're gonna have something that's off or some things that happen that are unexpected. And so the best way for us to address that is to really have good relationships with our customers and to really function as much as we can as a part of their team. And so, building those relationships, I know a lot of times in the past we would, start off with an in-person, a few days on site with customers, but now that's not as possible as it used to be.
People measure success for digital commerce projects in a variety of ways. If you're on the executive side, I'm sure it's more, did you hit your budget? And are you generating revenue? If you're on the marketing side, is it meeting the look and feel and brand of what you're looking to accomplish? As a business analyst, and just as yourself, what would you say are signs of success on a digital commerce project?
So I think the most glaring sign of success that I can think of, and this is like this seems very basic, I don't want to oversimplify this, but if your customer is happy, if your customer is doing well and happy with the work you're doing, that's a big sign of success. Again, life's not perfect and things are always going to come up in these massive projects, but the end goal is that your customer feels confident that you're handling those issues. They're confident and secure that you are effectively and proactively handling anything that comes your way. And I think being able to trust your team really helps them sleep easy at night, because this is stressful on them too. In our case, when we're rebuilding a whole website, I mean, it's a very big deal. So we want them to always feel as comfortable with us as possible and confident that we're getting everything handled for them. Another pretty obvious sign of success is increased revenue once we're all done. A well-done website is a site that people want to visit. And I think we all know the feeling, like you go to a website and you're just like, oh, this is really slick. Like, that's cool. This looks really nice. And I love that feeling. And so that's what we always want to create. And you want a site that's easy to navigate. And a site that's easy to navigate is usually pretty easy to buy from. Yeah. So that increased revenue is obviously always a huge end goal too.
Yeah, and to your first point, I think we should expect some challenges, and the projects are complex, and not everything will be perfect, but rather, our goal is to team well together, and for our customers to trust us, for us to trust each other, to work through it towards shared success. So on a related note, when we run into roadblocks or issues, things that we weren't expecting, what do you think are keys to working through it so that in the end, the customer does feel confident and secure that we've handled their issue well?
I think the first step to that is being a good listener. If there's an issue, you need to fully listen. Like, don't kind of assume you know what the issue is. Like, I want to really hear them explain the issue to me of what they think is going on. And then 2, I'm going to try to recreate that problem and confirm it. And if I can, then let's acknowledge the problem. We don't want to sweep it under the rug or try to just move on. Like, we need to acknowledge it. Yeah. And from there, it's just going to be determining what is the best solution or what is the best fix. Oftentimes in our industry, we could fix that issue 5 different ways. And so it's going to be an evaluation of what is going to be the best outcome, what is the best option of those different fixes to pick from. Yeah. I have found it really helpful to sort of outline those different fixes for the customer. Like, here's the pros and cons of all 3 fixes I can think of. Let's discuss them and then come up with the best solution together.
Kim, you play an instrumental role in our Accelerator product called Catalyst. For those who are not familiar with Catalyst, it is a product that we've built on the Episerver platform. We do a lot of work with Episerver, because it's a strong framework that supports a low total cost of ownership. In that same regard, it has high initial labor costs up front. To address this, back in 2014, when we originally built Catalyst, our accelerator for Episerver development, last year in the fall of 2019, Episerver released a starter kit / demo site that they now call Foundation. Can you tell us a bit about your process and the Brilliance process that went through to determine whether we should continue developing Catalyst or if we should just transition into leveraging the new Foundation product that Episerver created?
Yeah, so I'm sure you guys remember well when Foundation came around, we had so many internal questions of like, what are we going to do now? Because we had already put so much work into our own Catalyst Accelerator. And so there was this big debate of, do we keep going with Catalyst or do we switch over to Foundation? Can we maybe do a mix? So what we did is we did a very thorough analysis. We looked at Foundation. We did a feature analysis list that basically compared everything that Foundation offers compared to what we have already built in Catalyst. Those findings were really interesting, and they showed us that actually a lot of the features that Catalyst had were items that we had already built into Catalyst in some capacity. So from there, we had one of our developers, Drew. He did a really deep technical dive into what Foundation had that Catalyst did not, to kind of figure out how much effort and time and work is it going to take if we want to try to bring some of those Foundation features into Catalyst, and can we do that? So that's kind of how we handled it. At the end of the day, we determined we are still really happy with our Catalyst Accelerator. We've put so much work into it, and we're continuing to do that. And Foundation has helped us improve it even more. And we can kind of take some things that we learned from Foundation and apply that to Catalyst. So at the end of the day, I think it actually worked out very nicely for us.
Yeah, it did. And to your point, and in conversations we've had with Episerver, they voiced that Foundation was meant as an example reference, and they kind of expected partners to have their own accelerators that they might bring in aspects of Foundation into. And I think part of our approach with Catalyst is just a little different in the sense that we work really hard to keep it very simple and not put too much into it that would need to get taken out. And there's a lot of some of the ways that we approach front end development are different than what's in Foundation. And so we just felt like it helps us have a cleaner base to start with Catalyst, and it eliminates rework that we'd have to do for customers if we were starting with Foundation. Referenced the fact that we have a roadmap for Catalyst that we're continuing to add new features in. Can you speak to how we decide what's on that roadmap and figure out what features we're going to add into Catalyst?
Yeah, so when we did our research on Foundation, we used a lot of that information to figure out, can we pull pieces of that and put it into our Catalyst roadmap? It's obviously very important for us to have a plan with Catalyst going forward, so we have it broken out quarter by quarter. This is our goal of what we want to build into Catalyst this quarter. So it's kind of always a work in progress. It's always improving. It's kind of exciting every time we see a new demo on Catalyst, there's new features, and it's just kind of looking better and better, and I love to see that. And the way that we have been taking it is we look at the feature in Foundation that we don't have yet. I'm trying to think of a good example. One is they had a bulk upload feature as part of their quick order, so that if a customer wants to order 100 things at once, they can upload an Excel spreadsheet of all those items and click a button, and all of that can go right to your cart, which is really cool. That wasn't something we had before. So we would kind of look at the feature and determine what percentage of clients do we think would want this? Like, who is this going to appeal to? And then also what goes into it is how much time and effort does it take on our side? Do we have the bandwidth to do it right now? And so there's a number of factors that go into determining where on the roadmap exactly we're going to prioritize something. But there's quite a few features in here already that we've kind of taken over from Foundation a little bit.
Yeah, and we added the reorder from order history. I think was something that, based on some feedback we get from customers in terms of the ways that they're interested in features and functionality, looking the resources and blog. Like, we try and set things up in a way that we've gotten feedback from customers are important to them. I know that also the list functionality where we can have shared lists across accounts is something that we heard from customers was important to them as well. The multiple users per account is something that I know we've gotten a lot of positive feedback about in terms of that functionality as well. We can map users to different accounts and organizations, and that's different than how the multiple user functionality occurs within Foundation. So
yep, there's a lot of control on this user admin screen where like an admin has complete control over removing users or resetting passwords. Yeah, that was a big feature. There's smaller ones, even just like type ahead. If you search for something, you start typing and then it will it'll suggest what it thinks you're looking for, which is such a minor thing, but it's really helpful as a user when you have that sort of thing.
Right.
You're clearly passionate about process improvement. Can you tell us about ways that you've worked to improve processes both for Brilliance and for our clients?
Yeah, that's something we are just always looking to do. It makes sense. I'm sure you've heard the quote, work smarter, not harder. And that's not to say like we're not afraid of hard work here, obviously, but like where we can save time, let's do it. So I'm always trying to identify opportunities to automate processes or functions, even if it's something kind of minor. If it's somebody in accounting is running a manual task every day and it's just a manual thing they have to do, it's so easy for them to go on vacation. And if that's just such a small part of their job, maybe they didn't ask somebody to cover that. And there's so many little things like that where it's like, let's just be safe. Let's get it automated so we know it's running daily when it's supposed to run. So any little automations like that are great. And also, I think it's just important that we always keep improving and we get better with every single project. So I know we've made a lot of strides in developing more SOPs and more guidelines to help measure a project's success. We have retrospectives of what went well, what didn't go so well, what can we do better next time. We're constantly refining our specs templates and our discovery session templates to make sure that we are covering all the right questions. So that's something, and that's not just me as a business analyst. I think a lot of us here at Brilliance, that's constantly at top of mind, is just improving and getting better.
Totally agree. Can you think of ways when you've worked with clients to help them improve their processes?
Yeah, definitely. So the top one that comes to mind, because I've been working so closely with them recently, is our customer Neogen, who are awesome. We have helped them put together some really solid test plans so that as we complete work for them, they have a really solid process to go through and make sure everything was done correctly. Obviously, I'm testing everything on my side, but then we also want them to double test on their side before anything goes live. Let's make sure it's 100% ready to go. So I think at first there was, people don't always have a great test process. It's like, well, let's just go in and kind of click around and see if we can break something. But I think it has to be more than that, where we built out actual test plans step by step. This is what you should do. This is how it should work. And we also encourage people to not just take what we call the happy paths. We want them to click somewhere weird that you don't think you should really be clicking. Like, let's just make sure you're not going to get a weird error message, or let's make sure if you navigate somewhere strange that you get directed back to where you actually intended to go.
Sure. So I know you and I have a shared interest in developing self-awareness, and we had a team meeting a few months ago when I talked about the Mood Meter app and tracking our emotions to better understand how we're feeling, and you and I talked about how you value mindfulness practices. So I'm curious how you think being aware of our emotions helps us to serve our clients better, and how mindfulness practices help you with that.
Yeah, I'm glad that you asked about this, because you know that I love to talk about it and I am passionate about it. So I'm going to try to be fast because I know that we're at time. But I do believe that having a clear mind is really crucial to be successful day to day. I personally try to practice daily meditations. For myself, I find it really helps with stress relief, and it helps increase productivity. If I feel like my mind is foggy, it really helps kind of center me. If anyone is interested, there's a ton of articles out there about hugely successful CEOs that swear by daily meditation. The Twitter CEO, Jack Dorsey, Oprah, Ellen DeGeneres, Bill Gates, these wildly successful people incorporate this and just rave about it. So if it's good enough for them, I feel like there's got to be something there, and it has helped me personally. So if anyone has any interest, I would recommend looking into it.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to the idea that like what we're doing is very technical, but also successful projects are really about us relating well as people. And the better we understand how we're feeling, we can communicate better with people and function at our best, I think.
Yeah, and people will pay, $200 a month for a gym membership, and we put so much focus into our bodies. I think it's often easy to kind of neglect your mind a little bit, and that's just as important, if not more so.
Thank you, Kim. Special thank you for taking time out of your very busy day to join us on this. We really appreciate it. If anyone's interested in connecting with Kim, as mentioned, she's super busy, so that's not possible.
That's not true. You guys can reach out to me anytime.
Yeah, you can connect with myself. Maybe that will steer you away, and we'll introduce you to Kim or Lori as well. Once again, feel free to reach out. We thank you for your time, and take care.